Welcome to the Unbranded Leadership Podcast, where we discuss topics to help all leaders grow. I'm your host, Mike Stefano, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about organizational citizenship behavior. Primarily, what is it? Why should we use it as a metric for morale? The internal versus external organizational citizenship behavior, and how to obtain that behavior in your organization. So let's get started with this. First and foremost, what is organizational citizenship behavior? So while doing my doctorate degree at Liberty University, had a lot of investigation, a lot of research into peer-reviewed studies, primarily in the business and the private industry. And I noticed that this topic came up over and over and over again. That was organizational citizenship behavior. And as I'm reading it, it almost confused me a little bit. So basically what organizational citizenship behavior is when an employee feels like they are a citizen of a community, and the community is the workplace. So when a company or an organization has defined its culture and kind of built the team and built the environment to make it feel like a community, and everybody wants to be a citizen of that community and take care of that community, that's what organizational citizenship behavior is. Now, I say I was confused because coming from the fire service for the past 20 years, when I read all this definitions, all of the information about organizational citizenship behavior, I kind of was like, this is a no-brainer. This is how the fire station always is. We always take pride in our organization. We always seek to mentor and to coach and to help out our fellow crew members. We always take ownership and take pride, like I said, in not only our job, but also the equipment that we have, the station that we have, the apparatus. I mean, I think the majority of us can it's hard for us to remember a time when we go to the fire station at 8 o'clock in the morning, the truck's not on the apron getting washed. That's just part of the culture. That's just part of the behavior and the habits and routines that we kind of build. So like I said, I was kind of confused when I first was reading this. But as I started to look into it a little bit deeper, I started noticing that there are different communities, even within the fire service. And I think a department can actually change that community. It can go from a very, very positive organizational citizenship community to one that's extremely disgruntled and where people aren't engaged and people don't want anything to do with that community in the slightest bit. So looking at the organization, we kind of have to figure out what kind of community we have. Are we looking at it as a community that has a dictator style HOA? And I apologize for anybody who likes HOAs, homeowners associations. If you do, wow, good for you. I'm sure there are a lot of them that work very, very well, but typically you get the power hungry people that are leading those organizations, and they tend to have a poor leadership style and poor execution of leadership in those organizations. So that's the question, though. Is your organization a community that's the dictator style HOA, where they're going around and they're forcing people to take care of their lawns? You know, hey, your grass is 3 inches longer than it should be. You have 3 dead branches on your tree. Your car is hanging over the sidewalk by 1 inch. We're going to hit you with a fine. We're going to hit you with a lien against your home, whatever it may be. Because there are communities out there like that. When we look at our fire departments, when we look at our businesses and our private sector, we see a lot of places that are like that, where they kind of rule with an iron fist. And that ends up being disadvantageous for them because it pushes people away. They don't want to be a part of that, and then they don't have any buy-in of the organization. Now, on the converse of that, we also have the extremely supportive communities where everybody wants to help each other out. Everybody wants to go out of their way to make people better. So when we're looking at organizational citizenship behavior, we want the supportive community. We want to build the environment so that people feel nurtured, people feel like they're part of that community, they're part of that organization, and they want to see the organization succeed. That's what we're looking for in organizational citizenship behavior. The person will go out of their way to not only complete their tasks to the best of their ability, but also help the person next to them complete that person's tasks and to build up that person. So instead of we're all competing for a position and, I have to step over 3 people to try to make it so that I can get that promotion. Instead, everybody's building everybody up. I used the phrase earlier this morning actually at work that high tide raises all ships. And that's kind of the mentality that you have to have in a community that's a supportive community, is that high tide's going to raise all ships. We're all going to grow together. We're all going to support each other. We're all going to lift each other up. And by doing that, the organization itself is going to lift up with that. Now, like I said, when you don't have that style, everybody's trying to jockey for position. Whoever's left there is trying to jockey for position. The other people don't want it at all. They don't want to even stay at that position. They don't want to stay with that organization because they don't feel that it's a community. They feel that it's just a job, or worse yet, it's a stepping stone where I got this position until I can find something better, which is even worse because we know that it's going to lead to tons and tons and tons of turnover issues. It's going to lead to succession issues, and it's going to eventually lead to failure of the organization. So the importance of setting the culture of your organization is absolutely key to ensuring that organizational citizenship behavior is in the front of the minds of the employees, if that makes sense. So when we hire someone, we say, okay, we want employee John Doe to exhibit behaviors X, Y, and Z. But we have to tell them what those behaviors are. We have to explain to them. We have to set our expectations for them, because if we don't, how are they going to know that that's what we're looking for, that that's the kind of employee that we want? So setting the culture of the organization and doing it early is absolutely critical. Right now, I am blessed. I'm in a position where me and 5 or 6 other team members are building a fire department from the ground up. We are literally starting from scratch. And as we're hiring people on, we get to create the culture of that department. We get to set the culture. And I'm going to tell you right now, this conversation is had many, many, many times in our meetings, is what we want the culture to be, how we want that culture to look, and how we're going to pass that culture along in order for people to not only buy into it and accept it, but also to promote it and exemplify it to other people as we continue to grow the department. But that doesn't mean that you have to have a brand new organization to do that. I think that's one of the fallacies of it, is that once a culture is created and it's moving along, that you can't change it. We know that you can change culture because there's an entire genre of leadership called change management and change leadership. Tons and tons and tons of books on it. Some really, really phenomenal ones as well. But making sure that that culture that we are creating is positive, and making sure that the people that we're hiring understand that that's what we look for in them, and that's, for lack of better terms, that's a successful organization to us, is one that fosters that culture of organizational citizenship. So next one I have is, why should we use it as a metric for morale? And this is big because we know that morale, especially in fire departments, can quickly spiral out of control. We have people that you get 1 or 2 disgruntled people at a station. What happens? That gets trickled down to the next person. There's a great saying that says that attitudes are infectious, and it's true. If you go to the fire station, you go to work one morning, and your partner that day is in a negative mindset, that's going to trickle down to you. You are now going to have that negative mindset. Even if it's only a slight bit, it's still going to impact you, and it's still going to impact the way that you act and the way that you work that day. And then conversely, or not conversely, but further down the road, when you go home the next morning, you're going to be carrying that negative mindset with you further and further along. And hopefully it doesn't become a trend where it's happening shift after shift after shift. Now, we know that, like I said, we know that our attitudes are contagious and they're infectious, and that we can pass them along to others. And that goes with good attitudes as well. But one of the things that we've always had an issue with, and I think a lot of unions have an issue with this, because they try to utilize morale, lack of morale, or departments trying to kind of utilize positive morale as a negotiations tactic. And it's really hard to get an actual metric of morale. It's extremely subjective. It involves a lot of surveys that have to be done, and a lot of information, data to sift through, on top of tons and tons of outliers that you have to remove, because everybody's got an opinion. And that opinion changes based on the people that you're with, as well as the agenda that's being discussed in that survey. So, for example, I just completed interviews with 38 firefighters and supervisors for my dissertation. And one of the things that I did was I did individual interviews with every one of them. And I got tons of great data. Really, really great. They opened up, they poured their heart out, they gave me honest, legitimate answers to questions. So then what did I do? I went and said, okay, we're gonna do a focus group now, and I'm gonna bring these guys together in groups of 3, 4, 5 people. And we're gonna discuss very similar questions to what I asked during the interviews, just to kind of see if their opinions and if their responses changed at all. And sure enough, they absolutely did change. Now, don't get me wrong. There was no, what's 1 plus 1? Oh, it's 2 when I did the interview. And with 1 plus 1, oh, it's 16 when I did the focus group. There's no drastic changes. But you could see the attitude, and you could see the agenda change. So, whereas one of the things that was talked about a lot was individually was work-life balance. They talked a lot about the need for time off. They talked a lot about the negative impact of certain leadership styles, primarily micromanagement. They talked about the brotherhood of the fire service and how impactful that was on their job satisfaction and their morale and their motivation. And then when we got into the focus groups, the number one thing was pay. That came up within 30 seconds of almost every focus group. Whereas it may have been skimmed over in the interview, but as a group, I think that they kind of felt that there was not necessarily an agenda, but it was easier to discuss things that were what they thought would be well adopted amongst the group. That they knew that the group's going to respond this way. They're going to probably side with me on this. And don't get me wrong, pay was definitely brought up in every single interview. But like I said, it was a minute kind of just drop in there about how it affects motivation and morale. However, the focus group, that was the number one topic, was pay and why they needed more of it. So going back to why we use it as a metric for morale. First and foremost, during all that research I did, all the literary research of, I can't even tell you how many hundreds of peer-reviewed studies that I read, just absolutely mind-numbing amount. Over and over again, it linked organizational citizenship behavior directly with job satisfaction. Over and over and over again. And this makes sense. If you're happy on the job, if you like your job, if you are satisfied with your job, then you're going to have the desire to continue working there and continue seeing that the organization, as well as the people you work with, are successful. It makes sense, right? So, because job satisfaction is linked directly to organizational citizenship behavior, that gives us the opportunity to say now, if X is organizational citizenship behavior, and it was the list of things that I said, that they are going to take pride in their department or their organization. They're going to mentor and coach their coworkers. They take ownership in what they have. They seek to be better themselves. They seek to make the organization better. They take on projects that they may not have been asked to do, if we see all those different things and we say that those are all observational behaviors, then now we're able to look at that and say, okay, if an employee is doing all these behaviors, then they are expressing and exemplifying organizational citizenship behavior. If they are doing that, then obviously there's a level of job satisfaction, because job satisfaction was directly linked to organizational citizenship behavior. The reviews after every single peer-reviewed study that I read, none of them said that someone that's exemplifying that behavior does not have high job satisfaction. There are varying levels of it, but nobody was disappointed or dissatisfied with their job that was portraying organizational citizenship behavior. So with that being said, that gives us the opportunity to say, okay, now we have an observational or an observable behavior that we can tie into morale. Now I can go out there and I can do an objective study based on supervisors. Hey, are your people doing this, this, and this? And we can get concrete numbers and say, okay, our level of morale is this because of the observable, objective data that we've now received. So if job satisfaction is linked to organizational citizenship behavior, and we know that low behavior means that there's low job satisfaction, what is that going to lead to? And I think that's kind of not necessarily a loaded question, but it's almost a question where you hear it and you're like, duh, Mike, I know exactly what this is going to lead to. It's going to lead to animosity. It's going to lead to poor morale. It's going to lead to increased turnover intent, and it's going to end up leading to that negative not only attitude but behavior and negative output and production of your employees. And that's going to get passed down. That's going to, like we said, that's infectious. It's going to move down the line. One of the things that I hear over and over and over again from firefighters is that once they have a negative outlook on their job or the department that they work for, all of a sudden everything becomes negative. And then it gets worse because next thing you know, you start having higher turnover. Negativity is going to lead turnover intent. That's just how it works, because if you're not satisfied with your job, why are you going to stay? But now somebody leaves that department, and then another person leaves, and what does that do to the department? All of a sudden, now those same firefighters that are still there that may have been on the fence are now having to train the new guys over and over and over again. They're now having to work overtime to fill these shifts and these spots of the people who have left. And what does that do? It takes any of the positive guys or the ones that are on the fence that are like, I could take it or leave it right now, and it pushes them right into the negative range. And that's where I'll say it kind of spirals out of control. And I think we see this a lot in departments, and when this occurs, we have to fix it quick. If you don't jump in and stop that, it's going to spiral quicker and quicker and quicker. It's exponential. We see it a lot in organizations that are struggling to survive. Is where was the catalyst? What was the catalyst that started that? So we know that low organizational citizenship behavior means low morale, which means low satisfaction, job satisfaction, and increased turnover intent. So what is high organizational citizenship behavior going to do? Well, it means that we have high morale. We have high inclusivity among our work groups. When we have the new guy that goes onto the fire station, he goes to the station the first day on his probation, he's not confronted with, hey, you shouldn't work here, this place sucks. Hey, here's an application for, the county. Here's an application for the city. Here's an application for this town. They're not trying to push people out the door. Instead, they're welcoming. Oh man, we're so excited to have you here. We're so excited that you joined our team. Let me help you. Let me show you how great it is here. Let me show you the truck. Let me show you your job. Let me show you your bunk room. Here's where we do this. And that inclusivity creates that positive mindset and that positive attitude from the start. I just wrote a post last weekend, and it was a quick little snippet, and it was about the importance of first impressions. And my wife and I stayed at a hotel for our anniversary in December, and from the second we walked in, every single person in that hotel was unbelievably nice. They were, how can we help you? Can I get you a glass of wine? Can I get you some water? Can we take your bags for you? Let me help you with this. Let me help you with that. We told the person checking us in, hey, we're here for our 19th wedding anniversary. And within 15 minutes of getting to our room, we're barely even unpacked. And we got a knock at the door, and here's complimentary champagne and chocolates. And don't get me wrong, I don't really drink champagne, but the idea that was an impact that they could make almost immediately to boost customer service, and the attitudes that they had was so impressive because it set my mindset right into a positive state for the rest of the time that we were there. I mean, they could do no wrong. I could have walked away with bed bugs. I didn't, but I could have walked away with bed bugs, and I've been like, you know what? It still was a pretty good stay though, because the customer service was just so good. But that's because it was so infectious. That positivity was so infectious. They were so welcoming. They were so inclusive. They wanted to help you. And when we do that with our work teams, and we bring that new person in, or we bring the new person on our shift in that just bid into the shift, or we have the person who just got promoted, and it's hey captain, hey lieutenant, we want to make sure that you're successful. We want to support you. How can we help you, and how can we make your job easier? Man, that goes a long way. That is so impressive right there. But that's what organizational citizenship behavior does. It brings that inclusivity. It makes you want to be a part of that team. It makes you want to be a part of that organization. And the behavior you express also creates morale, and it creates positivity in everybody around you. So where we saw the negative infectious attitude and how that trickled down, now this year here on this side, we're seeing the positive infectious attitude and how you can make everyone around you positive. But again, it goes back to, as an organization, we have to set that culture. If your leadership is not acting this way, and your leadership is not portraying this and exemplifying this culture and this behavior, then why is anybody else going to do it? If they see their leadership being negative and not caring, they're not going to care themselves either. It has to start from the top and trickle down. That's how it has to work in order for us to be successful. And when I say leadership, I don't mean just the fire chief. I don't mean just the CEO. I mean leadership all the way down the ranks. That includes the senior firefighter. A lot of times your firefighters, the brand new firefighter, is going to look to the senior firefighter for their attitude, their behavior, even more so than the actual company officer. Don't get me wrong, I think the company officer is by far the most important position in the fire service. They set the tone for everything. But even if you have a positive and a great company officer, but your senior firefighter is a salty, negative, just hates his life, hates showing up to work, the new guy's going to look at that. And the new guy's going to take after that person a lot quicker than they're going to take after the officer. So I like to relate this all back to what I call family dynamics. And I wrote an article about it, I don't even know, almost 10 years ago, for fire engineering. And it relates the family to the fire service. And when I say that, I mean the lieutenant or the captain, the station officer, is like dad. Okay, he's the one that's in charge. He's the one that has the most influence and direct impact on the firefighters, on the kids, right? So the kids are the firefighters. And you have your young kids, your brand new probationary kid who's like a toddler. You know, he barely knows how to use the bathroom, and he's almost potty trained. We're not really 100% sure yet, but he's getting there. And then it goes up from there. And then you look at your senior firefighters, and those are like your teenage siblings. Those are the ones that all the kids are looking up to. Oh man, you know, Johnny's got 20 years on the job, just like Johnny's my 16-year-old brother, man. He's got the cool car. He gets to go do this. He has his own job. And Johnny can be that great role model to them. But Johnny can also be the person who completely knocks them down and is out, you know, partying, smoking cigarettes, drunk driving, and all these bad characteristics that the kid's not going to see and go, well, that's my hero. I'm going to grow up to be like him. So going back to that, every aspect of leadership has to exemplify that culture of organizational citizenship behavior in order for it to catch on, in order for it to grow and progress. So, internal and external organizational citizenship behavior. So I have, when I do this podcast, I have a list of notes, and I break them down into different sections and everything. And as I was reviewing my notes, and as I was reviewing the topic of organizational citizenship behavior, my mind got spinning. It typically does. I go down all kinds of rabbit holes of thoughts and philosophies and theories and just absolute random things. My coworker Steve Shaw and I end up having loads of conversations that are half an hour to an hour long, and we get done with it and we're like, wait, how did we get here in the first place? Like how did this happen? But I'm reviewing the notes for this one, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, it's funny. I read all this stuff about organizational citizenship behavior and how it affects the employees, and that's what it is. It's organizational citizenship. But it's funny because I never really heard or saw anything about an external aspect of organizational citizenship. So I started thinking about it, and everything I've talked to you about up to this point has been internal, right? We've talked about employees, we've talked about leadership, we talked about the bosses, coaching, mentoring, we talked about pride and ownership, production of being able to do our jobs and everything like that. But we didn't really talk about the external aspect. So my question is there an external aspect to organizational citizenship behavior? And I think there is. And I think what that is when you have community or customer citizenship behavior. When the actual customers that we're serving, so in the fire service, that would be our citizens, right, that we're serving, when they are engaged and they see our organization as a community and they want to strive to help us, man, I think that's our external organizational citizenship behavior, is when we have buy-in from the community. Not the community that we've created, but the community that we serve. And looking back on this, when we go through a process called strategic planning, one of the aspects of it is getting community buy-in, getting community relations going to see what specifically our citizens want from an organization, they want from their fire department. Reaching out to them and saying, look, this is what a lot of the departments offer, this is what we're able to offer, but what do you want? Because at the end of the day, the taxpayer is the person that's paying for the services. We operate to serve them. There's no other reason for our existence is other than to serve our constituents, our citizens, right? So creating that buy-in is essential. So how do we do that? One way that we're doing this with the department that I work for is through something called the FRAP, which is the Fire Rescue Advisory Panel. Basically, it's a panel of people who have been positive with the organization from the start. They wanted to see it, and reaching out to them, engaging them, and creating that buy-in of, what do you want to see with this? How can we make our product that we are producing better? How can we serve you more efficiently? How can we make you more engaged with not only what we're doing, but with the actual organization itself? And so far, it's been fantastic. But I think a lot of that comes back to, again, our guys and our attitude. If I were to go up to members of the community and say, hey, I want you guys to get together and come to a meeting at 6:00 at night on a weeknight after you get off work, but my guys have a terrible attitude, they are dressing poorly, the apparatus looks like crap, it's not washed, stations are falling apart, they get on calls and they're rude to our customers, or they're turfing them, trying to get out of transport on calls and on medical calls where they need to be transported. If they're doing a poor job and just all kinds of really, really bad productivity, do you think that community member is going to want to come reach out to us and talk to us? No, they're just going to try to get rid of us. That's what they're looking to do. So going back to that, I think the external organizational citizenship behavior is also a metric. It's another observational or observable metric that we can utilize to see how good of a product that we're putting out. If our citizens are so engaged and they're so into our product that they want to come spend time at our fire stations, they want to come spend time at our community events, they want to be a part of advisory panels, they want to brag about the department. Those are all really, really good signs and observable metrics to show that what you're doing is working and you are producing a good product. Conversely, if it's nothing but negativity that we're seeing, if it's rallies against the department, if it's or worse yet, if it's silence, if we don't hear anything from our people, our citizens that we're serving, that's a bad sign. That's a sign that we're probably not holding up to the expectations that they have. We have a little saying that we use in my department about wow culture and how to create wow culture, that our culture of the organization should be to wow every single person that we engage with, whether that's a customer, whether that's a new employee or a vendor or a person from the public. Maybe it's another organization, another fire chief that we work with. Our goal is to wow them, is to show them such high customer service, such high engagement that they walk away going, wow, that was really good. I don't know what just happened, but man, I feel good about it. So the next bullet that I have is, how do we obtain organizational citizenship behavior in our organization? Kind of redundant there, organizational citizenship. Anyway. So we kind of talked a little bit about it from the external standpoint, but not necessarily the internal standpoint. We brought up a little bit about how a positive mindset and that positive attitude is infectious and can carry on to others. However, we didn't talk about how to actually specifically grow the organizational citizenship. So when we look at it, one of the best ways that we can do this is through, we'll say, attributes that are similar or that fall in line with servant leadership. And I say that because, as you guys know, I'm a proponent of unbranded leadership, that there is no name for the leadership, there is no specific style. It's pulling things from different styles and putting them all together and seeing what works for us, what works for our individual leadership, our individual organization, and our individual crew. So using a lot of it, though, comes from servant leadership. And one of the main aspects of it that I think is absolutely critical is empowering of our employees. When we empower our employees and we invest in them and we show them that we want them to go out and to be able to make mistakes on their path to growing, that's huge, because that shows that not only do we care for them as an employee, but we care for their career, we care for their growth, we care for their development as a firefighter or an employee or whatever it may be, depending on what industry you're in. And that's kind of the goal. That's the goal of leadership, is to grow other leaders. Ideally, every single person that works underneath us will become a leader eventually, and that they'll exemplify the behaviors that we used and that we acted with in our leadership. But man, if you really take a hard look at yourself and you do some self-reflection, you got to think, do you want more leaders like you? And a lot of people are going to say no. But that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. So other ways we can do it too is going to be through mentorship, actual, specific, and intentional mentorship. Not necessarily the organic, informal mentorship that we get from like friends, that we get from, hey, I worked for this leader for so many years, so I learned a lot from them. That's really good stuff, and I think there's a lot of value in that. But there's also a lot of value in an actual formal mentorship that's created when you say, okay, we're going to take time and actually schedule this. We're going to take time and meet up. We're going to discuss these topics. We're going to discuss your growth. We're going to discuss where you want to be, how to get there, and then we're going to follow up on it. And we're going to continuously follow up on it. And I'm going to have evaluation periods for you. And not necessarily I have to write it down, we scored a 5 on this and a 6 on this one, and it was a 2 on this one. That's not what I mean. I mean like evaluating what's happened in that person's career, where they're at, their motivation, what they're doing in their career. And that can be a simple conversation. But that dedicated, intentional mentorship is absolutely critical to not only creating organizational citizenship behavior in which they're buying into the company or they're buying into the department, but also from the sense of now I'm building a succession plan. I'm building people, I'm building bench strength so that I know that I have, 3 people that I'm mentoring. And of those 3 people now, when a position opens up that I'm like, oh, this is going to be a really good leadership position that I need someone strong in that position. Now I've got 3 people sitting on my bench that I can pull from the bullpen and put them up on the mound right now, and we're going to continue going. I want my closer that's ready to go, that's already warmed up, and that knows what's going on in the game. Another way that we can increase and build the organizational citizenship is, again, defining our culture. Not only creating that culture and creating the expectations, but defining it. And that's a big aspect. It goes back to what we talked about a little bit in the introduction about branding. That with this podcast, we're talking about unbranded leadership. However, for our organizations, we do want to create a brand. We do want people to look at our company or our department and say, they are known for this. And how do we get that out there? We tell them that. We exemplify that. Everything is about our brand. So if you have a culture of, for example, wow culture, we're going to talk about that culture a lot. We are going to discuss that culture. That's going to be at a lot of our meetings. When we talk about our vision and our mission and our goals and our objectives, we're going to make sure that that aligns with that culture. To the point of it might even be in our vision and objectives and our mission is defining that culture. But we want to make sure that that is just over and over and over again, that's the first thing on our mind when we go on a call, that's the last thing on our mind when we're writing that report, that when I'm doing training, I'm thinking of that culture. When I go home, I'm thinking of that culture. That culture should define the department, and that's what we need in order to build that buy-in. If a person comes to work and they're like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. I don't know what the mission is. I don't know what the vision is. I don't know what the culture is. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just know that I'm here. That's a problem. That's a big problem. Next one is treating employees with respect. And that goes back to the servant leadership aspect of it, is treating people how you want to be treated, right? The golden rule. A lot of the responses that I got during the research that I was doing talked about not only micromanagement, but also about people who would, do as I say, not as I do. And they would be extremely rude to firefighters, and they would basically, point the finger, go do this, go do that. And it was things that they weren't even willing to do themselves. And that was a big one. That and the converse of that, of leading by example, of, don't tell me to do something that you can't do or you wouldn't do. Man, I think that's there's a lot to that to break down, of just the attitude of not only what we convey when we go to work and just our general attitude, but also the attitude of how we treat people and how we treat our employees. Are we treating them like they're subordinates? Are we treating them like they're lesser? Or are we treating them like they're equals? So a really good exercise that I do a lot, and I know a lot of other very successful leaders do this, is what's called creating holding environments. And a holding environment is basically a meeting that every single person that's in the meeting, it doesn't matter your rank, it doesn't matter your position. You could be the CEO and you could be the brand new guy that's working in the mailroom. It doesn't matter. Everyone has an opinion, everyone has a voice, and you're basically creating a think tank or a brainstorming session, and everybody has a voice in that session to say what they feel, what they think, and how to improve the situation. And that's critical for gaining buy-in, but also building up relationships. When you have a meeting and you get to say, okay, we're going to discuss, how to stock this fire engine today. We're buying a new fire engine. We need to figure out what equipment's going to go on there. And you get together a committee of people, and you bring firefighters, you bring drivers, you bring captains, you bring battalion chiefs and you bring the fire chief and you all sit down in the same room and everybody can discuss freely, you better believe that that firefighter is now making relationships with people that they would never have talked with normally. You know, the fire chief and the firefighter rarely have conversations together. They're rarely in the same room together, but here they are, not only having a conversation, but it's not even a, hey, the chief's talking to the firefighter and the firefighter's listening going, yes, sir, yes, sir. Now they're equals in this meeting. And that builds a lot of confidence in your people. Very, very, very critical. In fact, I think I'm going to do an entire podcast just about holding environments soon because I think it's just such an amazing tool and a really, really great thing to create, a great environment to create to build morale as well as get some really good information and information that's free flowing. It's not an agenda. It's not, I don't know what I'm allowed to say. It's true, honest, from the heart information. So to conclude with this, our organizational citizenship behavior is behavior that can be observed and that we can use as a metric for morale of the organization. And again, guys, this is so important that we have an ability to have observable information, observable data that's objective that we can use to gauge what the morale is of the organization or the team or the crew or whatever it may be. We have to know what we're looking for though, and we have to be able to build that up as well. The worst thing we can do is sit there and go out to an organization and just test them blindly. I think that's one of the worst things is when you have the guy that shows up and he's like, hey, go out there and tell me, how do you do this, this, and this? And you're like, whoa, I didn't know you were going to be here today. We've never touched this before. I have no idea what you're talking about, kind of thing. Take the information, use it, build up your department as much as you can, and then evaluate it using this as a metric. You can have a starting metric. We should have a starting place, but don't look at it and be like, oh, we're screwed now. Our morale looks terrible. Okay, we're just going to walk away. No, use it as a starting point to build up from there. To be honest with you, organizational citizenship behavior is absolutely critical for the success of a fire department and is very beneficial for the success in private industry. And I say that because the reality is private industry, you're working together typically for 8 hours at a time. You're working together for 5 days a week, 8 hours at a time, and then you go home. Fire departments, we live together. It is so absolutely critical that we are able to work in an environment where you feel that it's a community, you feel that you're part of it, that it's inclusive, that you are doing a great job and you are being brought up by your brothers and sisters, and conversely, you are bringing them up. And if you don't have that aspect, you don't have that family dynamic and that family community within your stations, it's going to fail. And all that's going to happen is either your department's going to fall apart, or worse yet, you're going to start having mental health crises that are occurring because people can't talk to each other. People are afraid to talk to each other. People are bottling things up, and it's going to lead very, very negatively very quickly. So to end this, if you guys have any questions, if you guys have any thoughts or comments, if you have anything that you want to hear on the podcast, please visit the website, unbrandedleadership.com. Give me some input. Go to the contact us page and let us know what you think. Thank you guys for listening. Get to work.